Hasan Minhaj is a so-called comedian that just got exposed as a BS artist. And I love when people get their comeuppance for telling expedient lies. Basically, he hosted the Patriot Act, which is a comedy news show, so-called comedy news show. It's mostly for Clapter, a la Trevor Noah, and he's in line to succeed Trevor Noah, who's stepping down from The Daily Show. And The New Yorker just did a piece on him and how he has fabricated multiple stories about being oppressed and discriminated against for his stand-up bits. This says his stand-up leans heavily on his own experience as an Asian American and Muslim American, telling harrowing stories of law enforcement entrapment and personal threats. Hasan Minhaj has now acknowledged...
Sounds hilarious, guys.
Yeah, sounds like a laugh, just a
That's
bucket
a
of laugh.
hoot and a holler.
A hoot and a holler. He has now acknowledged for the first time that many of these anecdotes he related in his Netflix specials were untrue. But his argument here is that even though all these stories didn't really happen to him, the important part is that it was his emotional truth. We'll get into that.
I shared with Mary this quote from AOC that
it's reminiscent of that.
Everybody was going wild about several years ago, and she said more people are concerned about being factually correct than morally right, and that's when you should have known that she was evil.
Yep. So he said, every story in my style is built around a seed of truth. My comedy is 70% emotional truth. This happened. And then 30% hyperbole, exaggeration, fiction. That sounds like 100% lies to me.
Yep.
That sounds like 70% lies and 30% lies.
I mean, it's weird. It's weird postmodernism.
Yeah.
It's Marxist postmodernism. Hey, what could be funnier, ladies and gentlemen? That's just a hoot and a holler. Like I said, I'm going to say that like 10 times. That's a hoot and a holler.
So
it's his truth.
Hoax number 1. He claims that an FBI informant infiltrated his mosque when he was growing up in Sacramento in 2002, right after 9/11. He claims the informant would make comments to young guys at the mosque about jihad. And when he led this informant on and made jokes about, like, I want to get my pilot's license, he ended up getting pinned to the hood of a car by police officers. This is not true. They tracked down the real guy. And yeah, he is an FBI informant, but he didn't work for the FBI until 2006. And he says he has no idea why Hasan Minhaj would make this up. He also never even worked in Sacramento. It's just all fake.
Why would someone make up a story like this in regards to receiving fame and fortune in a highly liberal Hollywood that was looking
where victimhood is currency.
When people, especially anti-American victimhood, that was looking to make America look bad. Why would somebody fake such a thing? That is a conundrum.
Yeah, sounds like a comedian.
Too obvious to be true.
Hoax number 2. Hasan claims that he received threats for his comedy. He put tweets up behind him on a projector during his special, which he now admits were not real tweets. They were all fake death threats.
Well, they should have hired the lady accusing Russell Brand should have hired him to make the fake one.
He claims that a letter was sent to his home, which was filled with white powder. The contents accidentally spilled onto his young daughter. The child was rushed to the hospital, and his wife, pregnant at the time, threatened to leave him if his comedy and his controversy put their family in danger again. This is also not true. He admitted to The New Yorker his daughter has never been exposed to any white powder. She was never hospitalized. He did open a letter that he received at his apartment that contained some sort of powder. Still sounds like a lie to me. But he made a joke to his wife, like, oh, what if this was anthrax? Yeah. That was the extent of what happened.
And you can, like, the sad thing is like, if you're hungry enough for fame, you can like trick your brain into like he's like he said it in his head enough times that he believes it. It's like at that point
he would pass a polygraph test at this point.
Now the real question I want to know is, did the wife actually give him that ultimatum? Like, was she really not his ride or die? I need to know.
His long joke is basically that his comedy has put his family through a lot, and maybe that's the emotional truth that he was pointing to with that fake story.
What a brave hero, being a comedian in this day and age.
It's so hard to be a leftist comedian who moralizes instead of making jokes. And then hoax number 3, I think this might be the worst one. Hasan claims that he was rejected by his prom date in high school because of his race. He says that his friend's parents didn't want their daughter to take pictures with a brown boy because they were concerned about what their relatives might think. Quote, I'd eaten off their plates, I'd kissed their daughter. I didn't know that people could be bigoted even as they were smiling at you. And now the woman in question says this was totally made up.
All of it.
And as a result, she and her family have faced online threats and doxing for years because he insufficiently disguised her identity, including the fact that she is now engaged to an Indian man.
Yep. Ooh. And there's a comment. There's
racist. It's not really adding up. It's not really adding up.
There's a comment here I want to address. CT223 says, as much as I find Hasan insufferable and not funny, stand-up isn't supposed to be true stories. If it was told in the name of stand-up, it's free game. That may be true, but it depends on how. There was also there's a couple of other stories I'm going to reference here. But look, if this lady then has to deal with people coming after her, then he should have, if it is fake and it was licensed to be humorous in the name but not real, he should have done everything in his power to make sure that she doesn't get doxxed.
And what was the joke? He was like, so someone sent me anthrax and then the anthrax got on the kid. How does that joke go?
But do you guys remember the story that Bobby Lee told on his podcast about getting with a Tijuana hooker who looked 12?
Oh yeah, I remember.
And then
that.
Later he's like, "Ha! It was a joke, guys. That didn't actually happen."
But it's that was a podcast, not a stand-up special.
But I'm saying, he's trying to use the same. He's trying to use he's using the same logic.
But also in interviews, outside of his special, when he was asked about things that he talked about in his special, he still referred to them as if they were factual events. You are intentionally leading people to believe that it happened. Mm-hmm. His justification. The emotional truth of the story he told on stage was resonant and justified fabrication of details. Quote, there are so many other kids who have had a similar sort of doorstep experience. Yeah.
Look, this is one of those, this is a hard discussion to have because for a lot of people, comedy is sacrosanct and it should be something that should be known. It's look, when you start putting limitations on what people can make jokes about, but what you're talking about has nothing to do with the content of the stand-up. It's about the way the lines are blurred between what was referenced as true and what isn't when it's such a hot button issue and is so divisive in the culture.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right? It's stealing other people's victimhood and making money off of it.
Yeah, making content out of it.
It's pretty heinous.
And when I go see a stand-up comedian, when I see stand-up comedians tell jokes, a lot of times I'm like, look, this story sound it feels embellished, and you can tell, right? But
of course.
And that's expected.
Ryan Long. Do you ever listen to his comedy? Clearly, all of the stuff that he says is not true, and he says really controversial, messed up stuff, but he's not milking this victim identity to gain a following.
There's not a social cachet to the embellished stories. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's not the same moral category, I think.
Right.
And he insists that even though these stories were made up, they're based on emotional truth, and the broader points he was trying to make justifies concocting stories in which to deliver them. The punchline is worth the fictionalized premise. And when asked if he manipulates his audience, he said, no, I don't think I'm manipulating. I think they're coming for the emotional roller coaster ride. To the people that are like, yo, that is way too crazy to happen, I don't care because F yes, that's the point. It's grounded in truth. What I'm ultimately trying to do is highlight all those stories, building to what I think is a pointed argument. This is where Hasan Minhaj loses what the point of comedy is altogether. It's not to make an argument, right? Mm-hmm. It's not to further your social justice narrative and make policy points. He's doing this to make arguments when he should be trying to make people laugh.
Yeah.
Right.
He's missing the point of comedy entirely. And they're only laughing because it's out of a social obligation because his entire audience is leftist.
And his approach to comedy, we can sit here and argue about whether that's the right approach, but there's plenty of people who are taking this exact same approach to the real world, which is far more egregious, where it's not creative, it's not comedy, it's not for levity, it's for social cachet, like you said, and victim points, and that type of thing, like in AOC saying people are overly concerned about getting the facts right when they should be concerned about whether they're morally in the right here. That
As
type
if those
of,
two things are opposed.
yes, that type of gray logic is bad for society in a lot of ways, and it proves just how difficult it is to bring people together when you choose those types of topics as your humor, I guess.
It's very like 2 + 2 = 5 kind of vibe.
Yeah.
Who was it? Was it George or somebody Lopez?
George Lopez?
Yeah, was he the one that stole all of the comedians' content?
He's been.
Was it George Lopez?
Yeah.
Is he a joke stealer?
He's a joke stealer.
I think I saw somebody in the chat mention that.
There are
too,
a lot
that
of joke stealers. Hasn't Amy Schumer also been accused of
I've heard of that.
joke stealing?
But I think it's worse to almost steal other people's life experiences and making jokes out of them, because that didn't really happen to him.
He's not making up the stories entirely. He's like basing it on either a real person or a real news story that happened to somebody else.
Yeah. It's terrible. I don't know.
Therefore, implicating them as well.
Yeah. But I feel real bad for the girl who had to go through like the death threats and stuff for like nothing. She's like, look, I wasn't even dating you. We didn't even go to prom together.
He's like, worth it.
He said
that's why it's
she turned him down.
when she confronted Hassan about the online threats brought on by his Netflix special, he shrugged off her concerns. And
He's like, you're a white woman. What do you got to worry about?
Exactly. It's like you benefit from systemic racism, so it's okay if I
Carlos Mencia.
sick my audience on you.
Carlos
thank
Mencia.
you. Thank you for that.
Guys.
Yeah, not George Lopez.
Okay, we won't speak on George Lopez.
Sorry about that, guys.
I was
I'm so glad somebody knows what I'm talking about.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Thank you, guys. Poor.
And thanks for correcting me.
Yeah.
Very much. Appreciate that.
Well, that's what they're going to send you an email now.
Now they're going to send me
like,
an
you were wrong. You were wrong. Correct it next week.
Love me.
It was very wrong of you to do that. Yeah, like, look, it's a gray area too, because like comedy is in a lot of ways, it is performative. But a lot of people take a lot of actual truth from those events, right? That's a lot of the best comedy speak truth about society. So then the issue here is about how it was delivered. And I do err more on the side of like, even if I don't agree with the guy, I'm not here to police comedy. Even if I think that he's kind of in the wrong here.
Well, even people who think that these types of stories, when they are real, need to be amplified, and his own fans are commenting on his social media. He deleted his Twitter, by the way. But they're commenting on his Instagram being like, hey, I've been a fan for a while, but what is this New Yorker article? Like, I think you should make a statement about this. You ruined somebody's life, and you don't really seem to care. I don't think his fans really were under the impression that they were getting an embellished version of the truth.
Yeah.
I think they thought that this really happened. He also told TMZ, all my stand-up stories are based on events that happened to me. Yes, I was rejected from going to prom because of my race. That's also not true. He's still lying. Yes, a letter with powder was sent to my apartment that almost harmed my daughter. Yes, I had an interaction with law enforcement during the war on terror. Yes, I roasted Jared Kushner to his face. I used the tools of stand-up comedy, hyperbole, changing names and locations, and compressing timelines to tell entertaining stories. He's really downplaying the gravity of it.
My daughter may not have even been in the room when this happened, but you know.
I don't even think that the powder is a real part of the story. I think he's making that part up. Yeah. Honestly. More telling quotes, you have to take the shots you're given in life, even if they're built on a lie. And the last statement he made, the emotional truth is first, the factual truth is secondary.
That is a terrifying idea. More than anything, that concept is scary because that's the society with. Thanks, gynocentrism. This is all your fault.
Well, the factual truth, it might not as well even exist.
Yeah. Yep.
Right.
As long as your emotional truth of the matter overshadows it, they don't care.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
And also he, as a comedian and a public figure, presents himself as someone who speaks truth to power and is like taking down the
man that doesn't exist because it's not a real story.
You know, the system, blah, blah, blah. That's just grating for audiences. Like, that's not something you go to see to like enjoy yourself and feel like a form of escapism from how dark and bleak the world feels right now.
Right.
That's like that just amplifies more of that doomerism.
Yeah.
He also had the nerve to do a sit-down interview with Obama where he grilled Obama about the authenticity of his end-of-year playlists that he makes. Do you guys know about this? He like puts out these playlists of like recommended music, like what I've been listening to.
Oh, okay.
And everyone like always sees these and you're like, Obama, you're not listening to SZA. Like, stop. And Hassan Minhaj like did this interview with him and he was like, look me in the eyes and tell me that you really listen to that music. It's not true. You're emotionally dishonest. Like, this guy is talking about dishonesty.
Yeah.
Like, it's crazy. He's just projecting so hard.
Absolutely.
Not that I think Obama is telling the truth either.
Right.
What do you think?
He pretty much admitted that it's not real.
What do you think he
was
really
like, I get
listens to?
suggestions.
What do you think he really listens to?
Obama? You think he
Classical.
listens to music even? Yeah, probably classical music.
Yep.
Reggae?
Think so?
No, because of the... Yeah.
Country.
I can see that actually.
Try that in a
He
small
loves
town.
it.
It's going to be on his
He's just listening,
2023.
he's just a huge.
Jason
He puts on sunglasses and goes to see Morgan. He tours with Morgan Wallen. He's a groupie for Morgan Wallen.
Yeah.
He just follows him around all over the country.
I wouldn't be surprised if I saw some Maren Morris on his end-of-year playlist.
In the chat, and so he says, SZA is just trying to rip off RZA. Yes, that is absolutely true.
Yep.
It's, yeah.
Is that what her name is based on?
I mean, I'm assuming that it's supposed to be a take on Wu-Tang
Yeah.
stuff.
Well,
I
Lil
think so.
Nas X exists.
Yep. And he's a ripoff too of Nas.
Absolutely.
I don't think it's a ripoff if it's like
It's an homage.
very clearly
It's
an homage.
It's an unwanted homage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Real Nas is like, could you not do that?
Yeah.
Like, he's like, I'm considered one of the greatest rappers of all time. If you could not put me in your category, that would be fantastic.
Do you guys remember Sean King? This guy really
do.
reminds me of Sean King.
Of
He's been like a high profile like BLM activist, critical race theorist who I think it's safe to assume that this guy's white and he just tells everyone that he's black.
Sean King?
His first name's Jeffrey. That's pretty white.
He's told a lot of very easily debunked stories about his life and I don't know how
He's
people
like
get
a
away with it so
Rachel,
long. Like Rachel Dolezal
yeah.
obviously is a hoaxer, but some people keep getting away with it.
Thanks for watching. Listen to full episodes of Pop Culture Crisis on Spotify.
Keep up with us on social media and make sure you subscribe and ring that bell so you never miss the show. Bye, guys.